Ron Gilbert has quietly announced his new project, which will see the point-and-click legend return to pixel art. Posting to his Mastodon account, Ron is looking for a talented tile set artist to join him and the team at Terrible Toy Box to work on a brand new game that will see the team tackle pixel art once more. He has always maintained that he's only created one pixel art game in his career, which was Thimbleweed Park, so this new game would become the second in his gamography. You may be thinking though, what about The Secret of Monkey Island and LeChuck's Revenge? And quite right too, those games are presented in pixel art, but given that they were released over 30 years ago, it's kind of inaccurate to call them pixel art. It was just art. That's how they made games at the time. That's what games looked like. That's all they could do. They had 8 bits, they had 16 bits, not a lot to work with. But you must be wondering now, are we finally about to receive the first true pixel art Monkey Island game from the game's creator? Or perhaps the new game will be a remake of Maniac Mansion, which Ron and Lucasfilm executive Craig Derrick had expressed an interest in doing. The job post gives little away about the game that is actually being created, but anyone who followed Ron's Grumpy Gamer blog may recognise a few little details. After the release of Thimbleweed Park and before Devolver, Terrible Toy Box and Lucasfilm came together for Return to Monkey Island, Ron had an idea for another game, which he was quietly working on in his spare time. He spoke about the game's development every so often on the blog, and over the years has invested a little time sharing his thoughts about the roguelike genre, which is what this new game is going to be. Here's what he had to say about the game in 2018. One of my many side projects is working on a roguelike. I've never made one before, so it's a fun exercise. Technically, it's not a roguelike. No random dungeons, no permadeath, not like it's traditionally used, but it feels like one. I guess they call these roguelites, or maybe it's the other way round. It's been fun to try and deconstruct a genre and see what is important and what is just legacy craft. But much like deconstructing adventure games to just the fun parts, it's easy to boil them down to something that isn't an adventure game anymore. Not that that's bad, but don't call them adventure games or roguelikes anymore. Maybe you stumbled onto something new. Later in 2019, he took to his blog again to seek out some recommendations for good games in this genre. The job opening that went live today confirms that this new game will be an action top-down pixel art roguelike/light game. So it's probably safe to rule this out as being a sequel to Return to Monkey Island or a remake to Maniac Mansion. Although with the reformed relationship between Ron and Lucasfilm, I suppose it's not entirely impossible for a spin-off of either of these properties. However, we can dig into the blog a little more to a post from 2018 where a job post went up on the Grumpy Gamer blog. And bear in mind that this was before Ron knew that making Return to Monkey Island was a possibility. He said, "I have a paid art job opening for my side project. I'm not going to say much about the game other than what I'm looking for in an artist. Think of it as a puzzle. I'm looking for a great 2D pixel artist. You need to have experience building tile sheets for a tile-based game. I would prefer it if you've worked on a released game, but if you haven't and your art is just a hobby and you're really good, that's okay. I'm looking for someone that can create a very distinct art style and can help set the look and feel for the game. I'd like someone that can do more than just create art based on a task list, but rather someone that can act like a mini art director." Comparing this to today's job post, it's safe to assume that this will likely be the same project, which begs the question, just how far along is this thing? Following the release of Return to Monkey Island, Ron and the team took a beat to enjoy the success of the game and relax before thinking about their next moves. Ron had mentioned a remake of Maniac Mansion as something he'd be interested in, and I did ask David Fox if he'd ever bring back McKracken, but I could get no confirmation on what was next. We likely won't hear more about this game until it's nearing or reached completion. Much like the announcement of Return to Monkey Island, there was only 5 months between the announcement and release of the game. It's possible that Devolver could be financing the new game if the sales of Return to Monkey Island were good enough. However, that would just be me speculating at this time. There is a Devolver presentation today, but I wouldn't expect there to be an announcement about this game just yet. If there is though, you can bet your bottom dollar I'll be covering it. So smash that subscribe button and follow me on Twitter. The channel is coming back to cover Lucasfilm and so much more.